Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growth Project. My name is Cory Shaffer. I'm excited about the conversation you're about to hear. The guest that I have for you today is head coach of the Clemson University baseball program, Erik Bakich. Bakich took over the program in 2022, and immediately you saw his impact on the field as the Tigers won the 2023 ACC Championship in just his first season. Also earned the number 4 national seed. Bakich came to Clemson after 10 years of coaching at the University of Michigan, where in 2019 he was named Coach of the Year and led Michigan to an NCAA runner-up finish. Prior to Michigan, spent a few years at the University of Maryland as a head coach. He was an assistant coach at Vanderbilt, and his coaching tenure or his coaching career started in 2002 as a volunteer assistant coach at Clemson. So it's come full circle for Coach Bakich. Look, in just a short time of knowing Coach Bakich, he has very, very quickly, rapidly sort of worked his way into, for me personally, a coach that I've interacted with that I would put in my Mount Rushmore of coaches that I've had the pleasure of working with, right up there with Mike Noonan and Dan Lanning. Coach Bakich is just great at what he does, and I try to shine a light on some of that over the course of our conversation. And so we're going to dive into his purpose, his why as a head coach. I think the story behind it is really, really incredible, very, very inspiring. We're also going to get into, in his mind, just how he builds and shapes his program and the culture, and really the focus of daily actions and behaviors that become a living, breathing thing in the culture of the baseball program. I'm excited for you guys to hear from him. Coach Bakich is as good as it gets, and we're sort of right at the beginning of opening day here for the 2024 season. So timely conversation. Nothing more to be said by me. Here's Coach Erik Bakich. All right. Hey, Coach Bakich. Thanks for joining me, man. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, Cory, more than you know. You've been an awesome asset for not only our team, but Major League Baseball players, superstars like Spencer Strider, who have been kind enough to kind of share their passion, share their story, relate it to our guys. And, I think everyone would be lucky to have your skill set and help to unlocking their performance, like Spencer Strider said he has with you, and our team certainly benefits from a guy like yourself. So everybody needs it, and we're lucky that we, that Clemson is lucky that we have your services, because they are second to none.
Well, I appreciate that, but this conversation is going to be about you, not about me.
Let's talk about you.
No. All right. Hey, one of the things that I wanted you to start with was I've heard you speak a number of times at this point, whether it's to the team or different groups. But you shared a story that I thought would be a good starting point for us. And it was really about your purpose for coaching, or your why, and how you got into it, why you made the decision. So can you walk us through that story? Because I thought it was pretty powerful.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. And, it's something we ask of our players as well when we're talking about levels of happiness. And some of the deepest levels of happiness and gratification are just committing to a purpose and really a higher calling that doesn't necessarily feed your own ego or personal gratification, but doing it for other reasons. And so personally for myself, starting the coaching journey was a promise made to my former coach, Keith LeClaire at East Carolina. I went into East Carolina as a business major and thought I was going to do something in that world. And when I got there, I realized, I don't really want to do business. I kind of like fitness and I like exercise. So I switched my major to exercise science. And then it didn't take me very long to realize that what I saw in Coach LeClaire and the leadership qualities and just the way he was able to mold and shape a team, that was what I wanted to do. And so this was a guy that was very motivational and just his ability to take a circle, make it tighter, get a bunch of guys from all different backgrounds to feel like they were 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And, he could create that high level of confidence within a team to make you feel invincible. Because we had no business winning the games we did or doing what we did with the roster that we had. We had good players, but we didn't have the, it wasn't not compared to some of the teams that we beat. And so, his story is pretty fascinating. He was the fastest coach, Keith LeClaire, the fastest coach under the age of 35 to reach 350 wins in the history of college baseball. So his trajectory was like a rocket ship shooting straight up. And I was fortunate to be a part of his first recruiting class at East Carolina. I didn't know that when I got there, that I was joining the Jack Leggett coaching tree, because he had played for and coached with Jack Leggett when Coach Leggett was at Western Carolina. And then when Coach Leggett came to Clemson, Coach LeClaire took over as the head coach at Western. So that was the synergy with that. And so getting to East Carolina and just kind of learning this Coach Leggett Clemson blueprint, if you will, was just something I felt like, oh man, this is a natural fit. I really love the way everything is happening. And so you have Coach LeClaire, who's already been wildly successful. He's taken on a new program, and we had instant success. I mean, we won back-to-back conference championships, #1 seeds in regionals. We didn't have the facility to host, so we had to go on the road. But we were a team that was definitely in that overachieving kind of bucket, and that was because of, his leadership. And so the year after I left, I got finished in 2000. In 2001, the program was even better. They went to a super regional. They were 2 wins away from Omaha. But Coach LeClaire had, he had battled some health issues that year. He had back surgery, he lost some weight, it just didn't look like something was up. And he had some testing done after the super regional, and he was diagnosed in August of 01 with Lou Gehrig's disease. And the disease attacked him very fast. I mean, he, within a matter of months, he lost the ability to talk, to breathe on his own, to eat for himself. So he was on a ventilator and a feeding tube. And it's such a tough disease because it robs you of basically all your physical functions, but your mind still stays sharp as a tack. And so for him, in less than a year's time, he all he could do was blink. And he was on this wheelchair, where he found a way to communicate with people using a laser that bounces a beam off of his eye and then onto this keyboard, and then hit an animate button, and then he could communicate, and you could see that, man, he's still same guy, mentally. And so before he got to that point, it was the fall of 01. He had already been diagnosed. He had lost even more weight. He was struggling with some of his gross motor skills. And I was hitting in the cage, and he came up to me while I was hitting, and he said there was a volunteer coaching position open at Clemson. And I said, really? Is that something you think I should be interested in? And then proceeded to take this awful swing off the tee. And he's like, yeah, you need to do that. And so that's when I really found out more of the depth of his relationship with Jack Leggett. And so he set me up with the volunteer coaching position and the opportunity to start coaching, really. I mean, because he told Coach Leggett, this is the guy. And Coach Leggett said that when I got to the interview, which I thought was an interview. And but Coach Leggett, I sit in the office with him, and within like 18 seconds, he says, "You're our guy." I said, "Okay, let's go." And so it was great. And I owe it to Coach LeClaire for allowing that to happen, because without him, I wouldn't have known I wanted to be a coach, and I wouldn't have got the opportunity to start coaching. And then the disease, kind of, really took a hold of his body. And like I said, he became the inspiration that he became. He was awesome with the players. I mean, he, motivated hundreds, if not thousands of players, but his message over the next 5 years of how he battled Lou Gehrig's disease and how he had shared with these daily devotionals that he was now sending through this eye gaze machine, on his computer in the form of emails, and he was writing short stories. The inspiration of how his priorities had shifted, how it used to always be baseball, baseball, baseball. And then through this battle with Lou Gehrig's disease over this 5-year period, the message of how his priorities had shifted with him, and how he realized the number one thing in his life was his relationship with God. And number two was his family. And then number three was baseball. And he would send these emails out and these daily devotionals and these stories, and he'd relate it to baseball or to, the Bible or to something, and just give people the perspective of, man, I really, I should have my priorities in order too. Look at this guy. He's, battling Lou Gehrig's disease and still has this unique perspective, still putting a positive spin on things. And so that actually what he did is there was actually 6 of us on that 1999 and 2000 college baseball team that actually kind of shifted course and got into college coaching. And we all made a promise to him as he's going through this battle with Lou Gehrig's disease that we would not only continue his inspiration and continue his legacy, but we would get to Omaha for him because he never got to go, and that we would all wear number 23, which was his number, as a way to kind of symbolize all of that. So it's why I wear number 23. It's, what drives me. It's why I got into coaching. It's Coach Schnabel here on our staff. Same thing. He wears number 23. He was a teammate at East Carolina. And there's still plenty of guys coaching baseball that were those same teammates, but we all share that same purpose. And it's to give all the players that we have the opportunity to coach, for them to have the same experience that we had as student athletes, as players, which we can say to this day is priceless. It's more valuable than any amount of money. The relationships, the experiences, basically what Coach LeClaire had created for us, to have that experience as players, to build those relationships with teammates and lifelong friends, our best friends, groomsmen in our wedding, people we're still connected to on a daily basis today. It's to create that. And that will always be his legacy. He fought an unbelievable battle, a 5-year battle. He passed away in July of 2006. But he forever lives on because of the way that his former players are passing on his information and his teachings and his lessons to other players. And it just continues this cycle. So I owe a lot to him, to Coach Leggett for the opportunity to start coaching, but Coach LeClaire is the kind of the originator for me of kind of a life course shift, from thinking I was going in this lane and then going in the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's such a cool story, and I appreciate you sharing it. And even just, talking about and seeing how Coach Leggett has been weaved through your entire timeline in coaching, I think too is where I want to take this next. So, you kind of mentioned from the start of you have these types of conversations with the players when you're talking about things like happiness. Coach, I don't know if you know it, but not too many coaches or the guy who's sitting in your chair are having conversations about happiness with their teams. But that unique perspective, and maybe some of that's coming from Coach LeClaire. I don't know how much of that comes from Coach Leggett, but who are some of those really key people you mentioned? But maybe, I don't know if you would throw like a Tim Corbin in there as well. I know you coached with him. Mm-hmm. What are the pieces that you pulled from these individuals who really influenced the coaching philosophy that we see show up today at Clemson?
Sure. Well, the thing that Tim Corbin, Keith LeClaire, they're all part of that Jack Leggett coaching tree. And the one commonality that, you can always, you're going to get from Coach Leggett is this passionate delivery of wanting to connect with the players and have them improve. And the improvement component of that is just that whether you played for Coach Leggett or Tim Corbin or Keith LeClaire, you are going to be challenged to get better every day, to improve, to never stay the same or complacent, but to just have this kind of this daily growth. And they didn't call it growth mindset, 25 years ago, but that's really what it was. And I know you talk a lot about that, and you're huge on it. And so, guys like yourself, Cory, and myself, who have been influenced by this idea and surrounded ourselves with people who are on that same mission of getting better every day, what are we doing? We're seeking more information to get better every day. And so the levels of happiness is something I kind of stumbled upon, just like, what you've shared with me. I've gotten a lot from you, content from you, and that's really what we're doing. We're looking for ways that it's the foundation is make the players better and give them the resources to get better. And the delivery of that is just trying to come up with ways to stay current with them, and not have this, be telling the same thing every single year to where it could get stale. But levels of happiness is new. Um, I just, found out about that. I actually found out a version of it was through an FCA minister at Michigan who was talking about it more from a spiritual side of things, and then just kind of tweaked it and twisted it and morphed it into a baseball side of things. But kids today, the way amateur baseball has evolved, and there's so many youth teams now, there's so many travel teams, it's really shifted out of community baseball into these, this mega business of travel baseball. And so one of the unintended consequences of that is how kids, they connect happiness and playing time together. And happiness equals playing time, and playing time equals happiness. And you're not happy. And so the problem is kids, whether it's playing time or it's being a starter or it's getting drafted or it's, whatever they connect happiness to, if it's connected to a result that they are trying to achieve, then they never really get to that level of happiness, because whatever they're trying to achieve, once they achieve it, they shift the target. So if it's a varsity high school player whose goal is to be a starter on varsity, and that will make him happy, and he gets to be a starter on varsity, and now he's happy, but then quickly later he's not happy because now he needs a scholarship. And so now he gets a scholarship and he's happy, but then he's not happy because now he gets to the college and now he needs to be a starter again. Right. And then he's a starter in college and he's happy, or she's happy, but then they're not, especially the guys who have a draft like we do, because now they need to get drafted. Right. And then it's just that you can just see how this goes and goes and goes and
Sure.
goes. And so finding things that, do contribute to a deeper level of happiness. And it's certainly not that level one, that superficial, that sensory change, that immediate gratification, things that make you feel good in the moment. Whether it's like, food or, gambling, drugs, alcohol, all the bad stuff that addictions kind of fall out of. It's not that, right? That's actually, we don't want to chase any of those levels of happiness, because they're just fleeting and they're more toxic than anything. But where most athletes fall into is this level two, which is a little bit deeper, because you get some cool stuff, but that's not what it is. It's ego comparative. It's the stuff you get. It's the rings, the trophies, the awards, the accolades, the status, the stuff, and a lot of kids put their happiness on, what can I get? What am I going to get out of this? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Nobody's saying money, trophy, rings, status, accolades, awards, recognition is bad. But when that's what you're chasing and that's all you're chasing and you get it, it's not really a deep level of happiness, because you quickly just compare what you got to what someone else got, and you quickly compare it to, now I need to get this other thing. It's just, it's good. It's good to, you want to help the team. You want to get those aren't bad things, but true happiness comes from deeper levels. And so we talk about contributing, right? A contributive level of happiness. And these are the people that serve. These are the people that give. These are the philanthropic souls of this community that genuinely want to do things for other people. And when you can find happiness by how you can serve, that's kind of how we define leadership. You can't talk about leadership in our program without talking about service. And so we put our program and our players in a position to go out and serve the community, whether it's young kids or elderly or everything, Clemson Life students, special needs, everything in between, just taking the target off of yourself and putting it on someone else, which used to be a foundational principle of this country. right? The post-World War II generation, these are our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers' generation. They were builders, they were givers, they think about what they could do for other people. And somehow, some way, we've kind of shifted, and it's, we're now the most photographed generation because every kid's got a, taking pictures of themselves all the time, which may be a necessary tool for recruitment because you got to post your personal highlight reels on social media to get recruited. But the unintended consequence of that is this very self-centered inward thing of look at me, look what I'm doing, look how awesome I am. And so we kind of have to undo that a little bit, and just put that target more on what can I do for someone else? How can I serve somebody else? Well, instead of, what can I get? What can I give? And then the amazing thing happens, as you know, Cory, is when you put the target on how can I serve and give, you get a lot of stuff,
Right.
and then that deeper level of just always understanding, like we started this talk with, of just knowing why you're doing this to begin with. Why, for a lot of athletes, the real easy one is, well, why do you play? Why'd you start playing? Why do you love what you do? And, or why do you love your sport? And a
Yeah.
lot of them coincidentally don't answer with all the things they could get. They didn't start playing this game for the, for the trophies and the rings and the awards and the accolades and the blah, 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 blah. They did it because they love the game. They love competing. They love doing it with their teammates, whatever, their friends. And just kind of go back to that. That was a big reason for our turnaround last year. And a lot of teams that have turned things around is just kind of going back to that simple 10-year-old version of themselves that started playing with a smile on their face before they hit a certain age where they became aware of all the other stuff and they stopped playing with that genuine joy and smile.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so cool to hear you talk about it and expand on it a little bit more. And it brings me back to, again, like it's so unique from my perspective to see a coach dedicate as much time as you guys do, to what you would call like classroom sessions, right? Baseball classroom sessions, and the variety of the topics that you guys hit on there. I want to touch on a few of those and let you briefly expand on them a little bit. Um, because I think this is really where you build the foundation of, the culture of the program. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, culture is such a big word, and everybody uses it, but it's like culture, you know, happens over a long period of time. I think what we do with these classroom sessions is we create an environment. We shape the environment, whether it's the classroom or the field where we're training, but there's an environment and there's standards of how, what the expectations are.
Mhm.
This is how you kind of, these are the behaviors, these are the standards of behaviors inside of this environment. And then over time, those behaviors, like down to the very detailed behavior, of how we warm up, and doing it with the left leg starting like these super detailed, nuanced ways that we do things over a long period of time. That is what creates the culture, is the
Sure.
collection of all those
But
behaviors.
but you mentioned again that that's the conversation that was starting there in the classroom to establish these are our standards, these are the norms around how we want to operate. This
Mhm.
is our shared language within this program. Those are just such unique things, especially as you mentioned, to go to the detail that you do. A lot of coaches would just hand out, here's your handbook, right? I hope you read it, but if you don't, you're never going to be asked about it. That's not how you do things. And the specificity with which you, like you described, nail down the behaviors and the expectations of how we act to be a part of this program, I think is awesome. One of the other pieces that I really appreciate is the expectation to understand some of the history and the tradition of the program. Can you talk about that and why that's so important to you that the players understand?
Yeah, so I think that probably the easiest way to, you know, to for people to understand what we're talking about that don't necessarily know you or I all that well. I think if they know you and they know me, they know exactly what we're talking about.
Probably, yeah.
They're like-minded people. But for those that don't, I would say that I consider myself a teacher, um, as much or even more than a coach. And what that means is that we have a curriculum, that we basically teach from. And Coach Leggett, it wasn't popular to have a baseball classroom, but he did, because his was maybe the dugout or the outfield, and he would get the team together and, interweave life lessons into whatever was going on the field. And Coach Corbin kind of introduced this classroom as more of a piece of real estate within the stadium, and a dedicated space, a space for learning and building the person. And so this classroom curriculum that we have, this space in our stadium that has, it looks like a you would see in a university classroom. And part of that curriculum is understanding the connection to our ancestry, as we call it. And so being able to not only learn from the previous experiences of the people that sat in those metaphorical seats or wore those metaphorical shoes before you, but also to be able to connect with them and get them re-engaged with the program, are two huge value adds for the program. And so for the players, they'll go and they'll pick someone that's a former player. Could have been someone who played for Coach Wilhelm 50 years ago, or it could have been someone who played for Coach Lee 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. But picking somebody that has gone on to success, either had success as Clemson student athletes or have gone on to tremendous success in life after baseball, and interviewing them and getting some of the greatest wisdom you could get, asking questions like, what makes you successful? What made your team successful? Mm-hmm. The golden question, if what advice would you give to your younger self? If you had to, if you knowing now, if you knew then what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self? Like all that's hugely important information for our players, especially when then they take the initiative and present in front of the team. Because what happens is our guys are taking notes and they're hearing a lot of the same answers that maybe are coming through in just a little bit different ways, but it's very similar. Whether they played 50 years ago or 5 years ago, success is success, and what it takes is what it takes. And so you hear a lot of the same things, especially surrounding work ethic and mindset and all the ingredients that lead to championship person and championship teams. And then it gets those guys engaged back in the program. They're coming around, they're a part of it, they feel included. Like this, as anyone, whether you coach baseball or lead a business organization, getting people connected and feeling included in it pays huge dividends.
Yeah. Well, so let's take this now in the direction of, again, what one of your best qualities, certainly unbiased, but your willingness to talk about, introduce, and really dive deep into the mental game of baseball, to me is so cool, so unique. And just your philosophy, which I think you summarized really well in 3 simple words, but brain, body, ball. Can you explain that a little bit?
My title is baseball coach. What I really am passionate about is unlocking human potential. And so that's actually, like, at this phase of my life, that's like all I, seem to do. And brain, body, ball is the order that things should go. But what happens in sport, because we're judged with what the ball does, the ball dictates the scoreboard and the outcome. The ball determines money and how people are going to be valued in an organization, determines draft, is what they can do with that ball. Mm-hmm. So I'm not minimizing the ball. The ball is always going to be extremely important, but a lot of times athletes will just put their energy onto how they can make the ball do better things, whatever sport they play, but they don't necessarily know how to make the ball do better things. And it's even worse at a time where you have this technology boom and we can measure what the ball is doing things in every way, shape, or form, even in the 3D modeling. And then, but they still, that almost confuses them even more, because they're trying to figure out all the metrics and all the analytics and all the data science behind it, but they're not really, that's actually the opposite of what now it's just, it's too much information. And so going a step before that, if you want to make the ball do better things, you got to improve your body. And so what are the ways that we can improve our body to make the ball do better things outside of the just go lift weights and run bigger, faster, stronger thing that was very prevalent in the 90s and during the steroid era of baseball, when that's what everybody kind of, I need to lift more weights. I need to lift heavier weights. But now we're finding this huge unlock over the last 5 to 10 years, taking a page out of the golf book of, if you want to unlock the body, you got to understand how the body moves and ways to harness that ground force energy and transfer it out to whatever you're hitting or throwing or whatever sport you're playing. So that's been really, really cool. But I'd say in the last few years, it's understanding, well, the brain moves the body. Muscle memory is just these, neural connections. Skill acquisition happens in the brain, not in, out on the field. And so what are the ways that we can understand the unlockers of the body and the ball in the brain? And that's where having someone like yourself, who you and I speak that same language, a lot of times these guys just are getting in their own way by having such a stressful response to whatever the ball or the outside periphery is, things they can't control that are happening, that their body performs in such a way, again, from things that are generated in the brain, whether that's, cortisol release or whatever they get, just it's these inhibitors of their potential.
Mhm.
So understanding how the brain works and what are the ways that we can unlock them to play mentally free, to allow their body to play the way that they played. That's why we call our field the playground, because you weren't thinking about the mechanics of how you launched off the swing. When you launched off the swing as a 9-year-old, you just said, Mommy, watch this, Daddy, watch me, and you went for it. You didn't have anything inhibiting you. And so just brain, body, ball just follows that flow of understanding the ball is really important. How can we unlock the body to make the ball do better things? How can we unlock the brain to allow you to reach your potential as an athlete, as a player?
Yeah.
And so that's where Cory, this, but that's your superpower as well. It's people who understand this at a high level, but can explain it to kids in simple terms so they understand it. So it doesn't matter if you and I are having a conversation talking in 4-syllable words and using words like parasympathetic, that's too many syllables, right? The kids, they need simple stuff, and so able to use phrases like you've used, like 20-mile march and hedgehog, and all the ways that you've helped them unlock their potential mentally because you speak it in simple terms. Those are the people who have the superpowers of the unlockers. And that's where I've just tried to understand it so well. Not a neuroscientist, don't have a PhD, not pursuing either of them, but want to be able to understand it so well to be able to speak it in simple terms.
Yeah, man, I think you're probably closer than you think you are. By the way, I mean, it's cool for me to walk into a team meeting room, the classroom, and know that you guys just recently talked about cortisol and its impact, on their ability to perform. Like, that's just really cool stuff for me. All right, let's push towards wrapping up here so I can get you on your way, because the season starts this week, right? So it's not like you don't have a lot going on. What I want to know is, baseball season, just such a long season. These guys are the first game on February 16th, and we hope to be playing well into June. So knowing that, what is it like? You hope that you laid the right foundation throughout the fall and this short time that you get when they get back from winter break. But what is it like? And maybe last year's a good case study of this, when that first month, maybe 2 months, like we're taking some lumps, there are some growing pains, but we're kind of figuring out who we are, right, as a group, and what our potential is, and so on. What's it like to sit in your shoes, and navigate that, in the head chair? And what do you hope to see early on? What's it like to be patient and knowing that, like, hey, we have something here, right? But like, they just need to see it. Like, we haven't quite seen it yet. And Just talk me through that. What's it like to be the head coach of a program through a long season?
Yeah, it is long, but it's like goes by so fast. All these years are flying by. It's because you enjoy what you're doing. So as in my role, there's a lot of excitement in finding out the true identity of the team, because the team is that identity is gonna be built and it's gonna be revealed throughout the course of the season. We do all this training, we do all this preparation. You have to do that. You have to put in the work compared to against what your best effort is, not what someone's doing down the road, but whatever your best is, and try to beat that every day so you know that you're truly getting better. And then know that you're going to be tested in a way that you have this plan and you have all this preparation, but you're going to get knocked down. And for us, it's how we label that adversity. And we label it, as we label it as good. And we use the Jocko YouTube video of good because I don't think there's a better way of labeling stress or adversity or anything bad that happens better than the way he does it, as this is good. But what it's really doing is it's preparing the guys to understand that every time we have a setback, every time we get knocked down, it's this opportunity to find out something, to learn something, to actually improve. And hopefully we don't have to learn that tough lesson through a loss, which is why we have these ways that we measure what success is without having to wait for the outcome of the game. We're looking at it, we're measuring it as, how do we respond within the game? What are the goals of every single game? And we have like 24 of them every single game. And are we meeting those goals? And we do a lot of film review, and we do a lot of this target on, hey, now that the season's here, it's not just a go get them guys, roll the balls out. We've been so intentional about growth and improvement all preseason, all off season, all the time. It's just who we are as people now. We're going to keep the pedal down on growth and improvement, because it's not the team that's playing great in February, March, April, and May. It's the team that's playing great in June that goes to the World Series and wins the national championship. So for us, we look at it as, let's earn the opportunity to get hot in June, because we stayed with this very continuous, consistent cycle, what you would describe as the 20-mile march, which is going on a t-shirt, by the way.
There we go.
But I love that message, because it's just another way of talking about getting better, being consistent, and this constant improvement. And so that's the challenge as a coach is, on one hand, that winning isn't a marathon. It's actually a sprint with no finish line. And when you start on this journey, like you have, and I have, and a lot of our players have, you start on this journey of growth and improvement every day. There's no finish line on that once you start that. So just because a season ends doesn't mean we're done. And so it's kind of putting all of that together, and just kind of keeping that message the same with our players, of regardless of the outcome of the game, regardless of what your stats say, regardless of all the things that a lot of players attach happiness and define success as, which is things that a lot of times not inside of their control. Let's stay locked in when it comes to these areas of, we do control these things. And, not to start talking like attitude, effort, cliches here of that kind of stuff, but just understanding we're going to be consistent on this path of improvement, regardless of whether we start 2-8 in the ACC or we go 18-2 over the next 20 games, which is exactly what happened to us last year. And most teams, if we didn't have that foundation, there's no way we could have survived that rough patch start. And that's where you see most teams and most players will just make that statement to themselves of, this isn't their year, or start baking in excuses of why it didn't go well and almost dismiss the season as a failure while the season is still going on. We had a pitcher the other day who he was throwing 2 innings and he had a really bad first inning. And the pitching coach went up to him and he just said, it's just not my day. Not your day. Your day's still going, right? Like you can't say it's not your day when your day's still going. You have an opportunity to bounce back and have a great next inning. Mm-hmm. Like us saying when we're halfway through the season last year, it's not our year. Well, then we would have, there's no, so I guess what I'm saying to make this very simple to answer your question, is the ability to continue to evolve, grow, and improve, adjust, but be consistent on that path. So you get the opportunity, you earn the opportunity to get hot at the end is what all teams, players are chasing. They're chasing the desire to get hot when it means the most at the end. So they can be like the Chiefs last night, since this is day after the Super Bowl podcast.
Yeah.
And it's what you find is there's it's not a lot of flash bang, sexy stuff. It takes what it takes, and you find a lot of the best of the very best. It's the dirty hard work that they stay committed to all the time. And I love that. And I love relaying that message. And I think in a way it simplifies it for our guys because they're not chasing some magic pill, flashy, unlocked piece of tech that's going to all of a sudden change their life. It's being very consistent in their approach on a daily basis that actually changes their life.
Yeah. Coach, this is great, man. I appreciate your time so much. If any of our listeners are interested in tuning in, I'm sure many are. Season starts this Friday down at Doug Kingsmore, 4:00 start. Is that right?
That's it.
All right. I'm looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to seeing Team 127 up close. And Coach, thanks again for your time, man. This is great.
Thank you, Cory. Appreciate you, man. If the listeners already know you, but all the ones that don't know you, they need to know you because you have been a huge unlocker of performance for a lot of baseball players and a lot of athletes and a lot of sports. So this is my shameless plug for you. You're the best. Appreciate you. And I'll see you on Friday.
Thanks, brother.